live.
And good afternoon. A bit of a change from the start time today. First things first, I really need everyone's support for this channel. If everyone could hit that subscribe button, go to options and select all notifications. That way you're notified when I do a live stream. Today, we're going to talk to Melissa Wood shortly about supporting support workers. I've known this is to be an issue for quite a few years now. I've used support workers through other service providers. And the really good ones are really dedicated. They do a lot of extra hard work in their own time and they get burnt out and they end up leaving the service. And then we're left without a really good support worker. It's really important that support workers know that we do understand the situation they're in, how hard it is for support workers at times building a relationship with some of their clients, and through illness or whatever the case may be, something happened and it affects the support worker in a negative way, and that also leads to burnout. And it's quite sad because there's a lot of support workers, as well as burning out, they suffer with depression and feel a bit isolated themselves because they're working so hard and so dedicated that they forget about themselves sometimes. I've had an issue with one service provider who's been neglecting their support workers for as long as I've been using their service. I actually contacted one of the board members and I was basically told that, well, what do you expect? That's what we employ them to do. That's what they're supposed to do. No. Yes, they're supposed to do their job, but going above and beyond is not what they're supposed to do. That's what they choose to do for their clients. And there are some people in the disability community who are so critical of support workers that they badmouth them on the social media platforms. And I've had a gutful of it. I really have. Without these support workers and building a relationship with them, we'd still be isolated. People with disabilities would still be isolated. So it's very, very important that, we let these support workers know we do appreciate them. We do appreciate all the hard work and all the dedication they provide to us over the weeks, months, days, years. It can build on for a long time. I've actually made quite a few good friendships through having a support worker, and when they leave the job, we still go out for coffee now and again to catch up. So that's how important it is for people with disabilities, and to have a good support worker and have that good relationship. I don't know. It's a shame that some people class support workers as bum wipers. I think that's an absolutely abhorrent and disgusting thing to say. Yes, they may have to do some stuff with personal care, but that's not all they do. And to denigrate a whole workforce, especially for someone who's supposed to be a representative or worked in the disability field and working with governments for such a long time, it's really bad form, in my opinion. But I just wanted to do this live today. I don't know if Melissa's there yet.
Oh, not yet, Jeff.
Not yet. Okay. Well, it looks like Melissa's running a bit late, so we'll keep going for a little bit. the NDIS, since we've had the NDIS and having access to more support workers and getting it in the community, has been the best thing for people with disabilities. It's a great program. There are things wrong with it, and that needs to be fixed up. Certain people aren't listening from the government and from our so-called representatives, which is a crying shame. There's a lot of good with the NDIS, but there are, a lot of bad things as well that can be fixed and need to be fixed. But it's just one of those things. It's a new government program, and then when I first got on the NDIS, people would say, "Oh, it's like building a plane while you try to fly it." Nobody ever does that. Nobody builds a plane as they're flying it. It just doesn't happen. But yeah, it's anyway. If there's anyone out there who wants to come in and ask a question or raise an issue, please feel free. And if anybody wants to email me regarding anything, my email is blindadvocate007@gmail.com. I've helped a few people over the last year or two since I've been doing this, and it's been great. I've had people from Queensland all the way down to Victoria and New South Wales that I've helped out, so that's been good. And like I said, the reason I do this is because people with disabilities, some of us can speak up and talk about things and act, but others can't for whatever their personal reasons are. They don't like talking about things. But I'm not one of those people. I've told everyone for a long time, I took my local council to the Human Rights Commission for an accessible path of travel in the CBD where I live. 10 years. I fought that one for 10 years. And I've got a barrister pro bono ready to take it to federal court. And the council went and got their own so-called expert legal advice. And one councillor at the time said that they couldn't go into detail, but the legal advice that they got was that if this goes to court, you will lose, so move the signs. So from start to finish, that took me 11 years. And I just didn't do that for myself. I did it for everyone with a disability, even people on crutches or mothers with prams. They have rights to access as well. But it's been a long, hard slog, and it took 11 years, but we finally got there. But that's why I'm doing what I'm doing with these live streams. It's to help educate people with disabilities in the general community. So I don't know. Melissa's still not here?
No.
No.
It must have been held up.
Yeah, she might be running late or she's forgotten about it, but we'll give her a few more minutes, and she doesn't turn up, we'll just end the stream. Anyone who watched my live last week was talking about children in public schools. Children with disabilities kept in cage-like rooms with bars. And the woman who wrote that report, Amy, come up and had a quick chat. I'm trying to get her for next Wednesday. I'll be doing that straight after this stream today, trying to organise that for next Wednesday. My support worker and I, we got onto the Department of Education website. And on the website, it says that they have the right, or that they can put children, if they're harming other students or a teacher or themselves, or they're being really disruptive, they can put them in a room that's not enclosed, but the teacher has to be there to supervise the student at all times. And we know that's not the case from what Amy said last week. one of her clients was kept in a room, cage-like room, that had steel bars on it. And there's another child that was so distraught of being locked in this cage that they continually beat their head on the iron bars until they split their head open. And when the paramedics got there, they had to demand that they unlock the door to help that child. I mean, what the hell's going on? I thought imprisoning people was against the law. Especially when you've got a child with a disability whose social skills might be what other people expect, and to put them in a room, a cage-like room. I mean, what the hell? We're going back to the old days of institutions. It's so wrong. I was actually so angry when my support worker and we first read that report. That night, when I was in bed, I was thinking, how in the hell are they getting away with it? It's against the law to imprison someone against their will. But the Department of Education get a free pass because it's Department of Education. Says a lot for our government, doesn't it? Rules for thee, not for me. But Amy was very articulate when she came up last week and explained what was going on and how she tried to address the problem, and she was getting nowhere with the Department of Education. We'll see how it goes after the stream next week if we can get her on. It'll be interesting. I was also recently contacted by someone to stand for federal parliament, federal politics, against the National Party member here in Armidale, who's Barnaby Joyce. No chance of anyone knocking him off that perch. That's his. He's got that for the rest of his life. Very safe seat for the National Party. And I actually vote for him. I quite like him, even though he's had a few faux pas. Barnaby Joyce is a good representative. And so was Adam Marshall. He was the state member. Done a lot of excellent work. And when our local council was so inept and so badly run, it was Adam Marshall who got the state government to step in and stand them all down and put an administrator in. He done a fantastic job. He's no longer there. But yeah, even though this person who contacted me was wanting me to stand in federal politics, talking about NDIS issues is a great idea, which I truly do support. It'll be a waste of time and resources for anyone to stand against the National Party in this seat. It's just never going to happen. Never, never, never. But yeah, I think in other areas it's worthwhile. People are getting sick of the Labor government and the Liberal government. They're so dysfunctional. They're out of touch with the average person. Electricity prices are sky high. You try being on a pension and paying all these electricity bills and insurances. And let's not forget that people on the age pension who get money from the government, which is well below the poverty line. I get half a pension because my wife works, which is fair enough. But those people on disability pension, they get more than someone on the age pension does, which I don't agree with. If you've been working your whole life and been paying your taxes, then the government should be stepping in and paying you back for all the hard work you've done over your lifetime. But that's my rant. I think Melissa's here, is she?
She's not. I do have what the NDIS review said about supporting disability support workers, if you'd like me to read that out.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
So this is on the NDIS review website. So it's ndisreview.gov.au under resources and disability support workers. The panel's vision: we need larger, more skilled workforce that can meet future demand for quality services and improved outcomes. More targeted strategies are needed in areas such as allied health to increase peer workers. Employers should be incentivizing to invest in supervision and training. Training credits should leave, and leave should be portable. Within the care industry, there needs to be more opportunities to progress careers through micro credentials, which is short courses. So this is the problem. We have heard from many support workers that they feel burnt out and are not sure if they want to stay in the disability sector. We've also heard how hard it is for people with disability to find good skilled workers that meet their needs. We know we need more workers both now and in the future to meet the needs of people with disability. Yet large workforce shortages remain. We have heard that finding and keeping disability workers with the right skills, values, attitudes is difficult. We have heard that workers are frustrated by a lack of good training, limited career opportunities, and not enough supervision. There are particularly greater shortages of allied health professionals. We have also heard the current arrangements for pricing and payments are not set up well. It is often hard for providers to meet the needs of participants who are more complex, including providing appropriate training for higher levels of worker supervision, which may be required. There is not enough information or guidance about how to deliver high quality supports, and good quality support is not recognised and rewarded. Worker screening is inconsistent across states, territories, and can be slow and complicated. The First Nations communities and remote communities also need more localised workforce. All of these problems stop people from joining and staying in the workforce. Each year, 17 to 25% of NDIS support workers leave their jobs. This can be because the jobs are sometimes short-term or have poor conditions, or both. It goes on to talk about the solution, about providing support for the workers, targeted strategies for training, pricing payments, variations in pricing payments depending on the work that's needed, more work being put into First Nations communities. And it talks about how it will benefit both participants of the NDIS and disability support workers who should have more career progression. And it's got some recommendations that were made there as well.
Okay, well, thanks for that. Well, you could hear what Chris just read out. 17 to 25% of support workers leave. That's a huge number. And there's like 80,000 support workers right throughout Australia. So 20% of that's a huge number.
Yeah.
It's not good. And especially for First Nations peoples, I've done an interview earlier this year, last year, with Professor John Gilroy, who teaches at Sydney University, regarding the First Nation people with Indigenous people with disabilities and the lack of supports that they have out towards the centre of Australia. I mean, there's huge distances, and I just don't know why the government doesn't provide free internet to people in remote areas so they can do repairs themselves. Like, as Professor John Gilroy said, that the dust and the sand is so fine, it's like almost like a powder, and it gets into the bearings and the joints of wheelchairs and electric wheelchairs, and they seize. Now, instead of sending the chair away, if the people out there had access to the internet and a how-to video on how to change the bearings on the chairs, they could probably do it themselves. They'd be able to access more resources, more information. But if they can't get that sort of information, then they have to rely on people making the effort to go out to the middle of Australia, which, as Professor John Gilroy said, doesn't happen very often. He had one person that's paralysed from the waist down, his wheelchair, the bearings on it got stuck, they froze. He couldn't use it, so he just dragged himself around the ground. Can you imagine what would happen if someone in Sydney or Canberra or Melbourne was doing that with a disability, dragging themselves around because they couldn't get their wheelchair fixed? The news stations and the media would be all over it. But because it's people in remote areas, they don't worry about it. It's not newsworthy. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things that we can do to improve things. But having support, access free counselling services when they're finding it hard to work with clients because they're getting burned out or they're suffering with depression. Yeah, it's a forgotten workforce. And I've said this for decades, that these support workers are a forgotten workforce. We just take it for granted, not just people with disabilities, but the government. And I've also said numerous times when they trialled the NDIS in certain areas, they didn't trial it long enough, and it wasn't wide enough because the governments severely and grossly underestimated how much people with disabilities went without. If they couldn't afford it and their family couldn't afford it, then they went without. Now you have the NDIS said, we're going to provide these supports now. People are jumping on the bandwagon and getting things they wanted to get for years and couldn't afford. So, yeah, I don't know. Well, it does look like Melissa's going to turn up today. I'm sorry about that. I was really looking forward to it. She's a counsellor for support staff. She was also a coach for health and wellbeing for support workers. It would have been a great information session on, especially for support workers, on how to cope with being burnt out and the steps that they can do to improve the quality of work they can do for themselves and how they can cope with these issues so they don't get burnt out, we don't lose them. But I can't keep talking forever, and it looks like Melissa's either been held up or there's something going on. That's why she can't make it today. So my apologies. I will try and get her on a different day. But next week I'm trying to get Amy back on to talk about the New South Wales Department of Education and its shocking way it's treating children with disabilities. Or I might end it there. Thanks, Jake. Okay, thanks.